What if one unexpected knock could change everything you thought you knew about love? The night was calm in Maplewood. Soft rain tapped against the windows, and the streetlights flickered in the distance. Claire sat curled up on her couch, her laptop still open on the coffee table, half-finished reports glowing on the screen. Ethan, her husband, was in Chicago for another business trip, or at least that's what she believed. The house felt too quiet, almost hollow, and the faint hum of the refrigerator was the only sound filling the space. Then came the knock. At first, she thought she imagined it, a faint sound over the rain. But then it came again, louder this time. Her heart gave a small, sharp twist. No one visited this late. She hesitated, glancing at the clock. 8:47 p.m. Who could it be? She pulled her sweater tighter, walked to the door, and looked through the peephole. For a moment, her breath caught. Standing on the porch, drenched from the rain, was Daniel, Ethan's best friend. The same Daniel who had disappeared 2 years ago without saying goodbye. She froze, her mind rushing through memories. Laughter at summer cookouts, game nights, and long conversations when Ethan was away. Back then, Daniel was like family, until suddenly, he wasn't. Until one day, he just left. Now he stood there, rain dripping from his jacket, eyes tired but still holding that same quiet intensity she remembered. She opened the door slowly. "Daniel." He smiled faintly. "Hey, Claire. I'm sorry to show up like this." Her first instinct was confusion, then worry. "What happened? Is everything okay?" He shook his head lightly, brushing rain from his hair. "I didn't know where else to go." His voice was soft but strained. Something in it told her this wasn't just a casual visit. She stepped aside. "Come in before you freeze." He walked in, the scent of rain following him. The living room felt suddenly smaller, the silence thicker. Claire's pulse quickened, not out of fear but unease. There was something about Daniel's presence that stirred old emotions she thought she'd buried long ago. He stood by the fireplace, looking around as if every corner of the house carried a memory. "You redecorated," he said. "Yeah," she replied. "Ethan wanted a change." He smiled a little. Ethan always wanted things perfect. She caught the tone in his voice, faintly distant, almost sad. She poured him coffee, trying to steady her thoughts. "So, where have you been all this time?" He took the cup, his fingers brushing hers for a brief second, a touch that made her heart skip. "I moved to Seattle for a while. Tried to start over. Tried?" she repeated. He sighed. "Some things are harder to leave behind than I thought." The words hung in the air. Claire didn't know what to say. She wanted to ask what he meant, but before she could, he continued. "I shouldn't be here, Claire, but I had to talk to you." Her stomach tightened. "About what?" He hesitated, eyes darting toward the rain outside. "About Ethan." Her chest tightened. "What about him?" Daniel looked at her for a long second, his expression unreadable. "You deserve to know something." Her voice dropped. "Daniel, you're scaring me." He took a deep breath. "It's not my story to tell, but I can't keep it from you anymore." Claire's heart pounded in her chest. The rain outside grew heavier, tapping faster against the windows, almost in rhythm with her pulse. "What are you talking about?" she pressed. Daniel stared at the floor, his voice low. "There's something Ethan didn't tell you. Something I found out by accident." For a long moment there was only silence. The air felt charged, like before a storm. Claire took a step closer. "Daniel, please, just say it." But instead of answering, he looked up at her with a pained expression and said, "Not tonight. You've had enough surprises for one night." Frustration rose in her chest. "You can't just show up after 2 years and drop that on me." "I know," he said softly. "And I'm sorry. I didn't come here to make things worse." "Then why are you here?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He looked at her then, really looked, and for a second, the years between them vanished. "Because I needed to see you." "Just once more," her breath caught. The words were simple, but the way he said them felt heavy, honest, painful. Claire looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "You shouldn't have come, Daniel. Ethan wouldn't—" "I know what Ethan would say," he interrupted. his tone sharper now. But some truths don't wait for permission. The words hit her harder than she expected. The tension between them felt electric, the kind that builds from everything left unsaid. Claire wanted to push him for answers, but her voice faltered. You can't just walk back into my life like nothing happened. I'm not asking to stay, he said quietly. Just listen when I tell you this isn't what it seems. What isn't? She asked, her eyes searching his face. He hesitated again, torn between guilt and something else she couldn't name. Ethan's not the man you think he is. Her entire body went cold. Daniel, stop! But his eyes didn't move away from hers. You deserve the truth, Claire. The words echoed in her mind long after he spoke them. She wanted to believe this was just confusion, or maybe Daniel was mistaken. But the look in his eyes said otherwise, a truth she wasn't ready to face. She crossed her arms, trying to regain her composure. You should leave. It's late. Daniel nodded slowly, setting the coffee cup down. I will, but not before I give you something. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded letter. The paper was creased, edges worn, as if handled many times before. What is that? She asked cautiously. He hesitated. Something Ethan wrote. Her heart dropped. To me? He nodded. I wasn't supposed to see it, but once I did, I couldn't keep it to myself. She stared at the letter, frozen between fear and curiosity. The room seemed to grow quieter, the ticking clock suddenly too loud. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Daniel looked at her with something between sorrow and longing. Because you have a right to know what he never told you. Her breath came shallow. The letter trembled slightly in his hand, waiting for her to take it. But she didn't move. The sound of thunder rolled in the distance. And then, just as she reached for it, there was another knock on the door. Both of them turned toward the sound. Claire's voice trembled. Who could that be? Daniel's face darkened slightly, his jaw tightening. You're not expecting anyone? She shook her head slowly. The knocking came again, louder this time. Daniel stepped closer to her. Claire, don't open it yet. Her heart pounded against her ribs as the rain poured harder outside. Whoever was at the door, they weren't leaving. The letter still hung between them, unopened. And Claire suddenly realized. Whatever was behind that door might change everything. Can one letter really uncover everything you thought was love? The knocking stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Claire's heart raced while Daniel stood frozen beside her. The letter still rested between them, trembling in her hand. When she finally opened the door, there was no one there, just rain pooling on the porch and the wind whispering through the maple trees. A chill ran down her spine. She turned back to Daniel. What's in this letter? Read it, he said softly. Then you'll understand why I came. Her fingers hesitated before unfolding the damp paper. Ethan's handwriting covered the page, uneven and rushed, words that felt heavy even before she read them. Claire, if you're reading this, something has already come between us. I've made mistakes. Not the kind you think, but the kind that change people. I pushed away someone I shouldn't have. Her throat tightened. What is this supposed to mean? Daniel's eyes didn't leave hers. Keep reading. The truth is, Daniel didn't leave because of work. I told him to. I saw how close you two had become. I couldn't handle it. I thought if I sent him away, things would go back to normal, but nothing has felt right since. Claire's voice broke. Ethan did this? Daniel nodded quietly. He asked me to leave. Said I was too close. Said you were starting to forget who your husband was. She stared at him, stunned. The world seemed to spin for a moment. Everything she believed about her marriage suddenly cracking apart. I didn't want to go, Daniel continued. But I thought it was for the best. Until last week? What happened last week? She asked, her voice barely steady. He exhaled slowly. I saw Ethan at a diner outside Chicago. He wasn't alone. There was a woman with him. They looked close. Claire's knees weakened. She sat down, clutching the edge of the couch. Daniel, please tell me you're wrong. I wish I was, he said. I followed them to the parking lot. She kissed him, Claire. The words hit like a cold wave. The letter slipped from her fingers, landing softly on the carpet. Everything inside her wanted to deny it, to believe there was some explanation. But Ethan's secret letter, Daniel's eyes, the late-night business trips, it all began to connect. Tears blurred her vision. "Why are you telling me this now?" Daniel looked down. "Because you deserve to know the truth, and because I couldn't carry it anymore." She wiped her eyes quickly. "You should have stayed away. I tried," he whispered. "But some things don't stay buried." A long silence filled the room. Then her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up, Ethan calling. Daniel's eyes met hers. She stared at the phone, frozen between fear and fury. The ringing continued, sharp and relentless, echoing through the quiet room. Claire hesitated, her thumb hovering over the screen, and then the call disconnected, replaced by a new text from Ethan. "Claire, I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." What hurts more, the lie you discover or the truth you feared all along? Claire stared at Ethan's message glowing on her phone screen. Her hands trembled, her breath uneven. Daniel stood a few steps away, watching her, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. The text replayed in her mind. "I need to tell you something before you hear it from someone else." Her heart raced. Before I hear it from someone else? What was he afraid she'd already found out? She typed back quickly. "Ethan, what's going on?" But there was no reply. The typing dots appeared, then vanished. Silence. Daniel took a hesitant step closer. "Claire, maybe you should sit down." She shook her head. "No, he's lying again. I can feel it." Her voice cracked, filled with exhaustion and disbelief. The rain outside had softened to a mist, but inside the house the air was heavy with tension. Every second stretched longer, every silence felt like it might shatter. Daniel finally said, "Maybe he's coming clean. Maybe he wants to fix things." Claire turned sharply toward him. "Then why do you have his letter, Daniel? Why not me?" He looked away. "Because he never planned to give it to you. I found it in his office drawer. I was there for something else, for work, and I saw your name." Her jaw tightened. "You went through his things?" "I didn't mean to," he said quickly. "But when I read that letter, I realized he was keeping more secrets than I thought." The mention of more secrets made her chest ache. "Like what?" Daniel hesitated. "He's been planning to move. Not just another trip, a transfer. Chicago's not temporary. He's been negotiating it for months." Claire's breath hitched. "Without telling me?" "Yes." Daniel's tone was gentle, but his words felt like glass. He even talked about buying a place there. Claire walked to the window, staring out at the street, empty, quiet, lifeless. All this time, all the business trips, he was just building a new life. Daniel stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You don't deserve that." She turned around, tears filling her eyes, but her voice steady. "And what do I deserve, Daniel? Another man showing up in the rain to remind me what I already lost?" He looked at her, speechless. The distance between them felt too small, too charged with everything left unsaid. For a long moment, they stood there, two people bound by one man's silence. Then, suddenly, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway broke the stillness. Claire's eyes widened. Daniel's expression darkened instantly. Headlights cut through the rain and swept across the room. Claire whispered, "That's Ethan's car." Daniel's voice dropped, tense. "You're sure?" She nodded, frozen. He wasn't supposed to be back until Monday. The car engine stopped. The front door handle rattled once, then again. Daniel stepped closer to Claire. "You have to decide right now. Do you want me to stay or go?" Her heart pounded. The door creaked open, and before she could answer, Ethan's voice called out softly from the dark entryway. "Claire, we need to talk." Sometimes the hardest truth is realizing love can fade quietly, without either person meaning to. Ethan's voice echoed through the hallway, low and uncertain. Claire froze, every muscle tense. Daniel stood still behind her, his jaw clenched. The house, moments ago filled with silence and storm, now felt too small for the three of them. Ethan stepped into the light, his clothes damp from the rain, his face pale with fatigue. "Claire, he began softly. "I didn't expect to see anyone here." His eyes flicked toward Daniel, and a faint tension filled the air. Claire swallowed hard. "You weren't supposed to be back until Monday," he nodded. "I know, my meetings ended early. I thought I'd surprise you." His tone carried an odd mix of guilt and gentleness, the voice of a man trying to sound calm while holding back something heavier. Daniel stepped forward slightly. "Maybe I should go." But Claire's voice stopped him. "No, stay!" Her tone was sharp, steady. "You both need to be here for this." Ethan's brows furrowed. "For what?" Claire walked to the coffee table, picked up the folded letter, and handed it to him. "For this," Ethan froze. His fingers tightened on the paper before he even opened it. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" she asked coldly. "You wrote it, Ethan." Daniel crossed his arms, eyes locked on him. The silence stretched. Ethan finally unfolded the letter and sighed deeply, like someone facing something they had been avoiding for far too long. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I wrote it. But you weren't supposed to see it." "It wasn't finished." Claire's voice trembled, a mix of anger and sadness. "Then tell me, what part of it wasn't finished? The lies or the guilt?" Ethan looked at her, his eyes tired. "It wasn't about lies. It was about fear. I pushed Daniel away because I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust how much you two connected. It scared me." Her breath caught. "You chose to break your own marriage out of jealousy?" Ethan's voice cracked. "I thought I was protecting us." Daniel shook his head slowly. "You were protecting your pride." The room went silent again. Only the soft ticking of the wall clock filled the space. Claire looked at both men, her heart breaking not from betrayal but from realization. She had spent years holding together something already cracked. Finally, she whispered, "I don't even know which of you hurt me more, the one who left or the one who lied." Daniel took a step toward her. "Claire," she stopped him with a quiet look. "No, not tonight. I need air." She walked to the door, her coat trembling in her hands. Rain still fell softly outside, cold but cleansing. She opened the door and stepped out without looking back. Ethan called after her, his voice breaking. "Claire, where are you going?" She paused, eyes glistening in the porch light. Somewhere the truth doesn't echo so loud. And before either of them could follow, the door closed behind her. The two men stood in silence, one filled with regret, the other with longing, as the sound of rain swallowed the night.